hit record. Oh, letting in a few more folks. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining this morning. I'm Carolyn Sarno-Goldthwait with Clearly Energy, and we're really happy to have you for our first cohort meeting of 2025. Claire, if you want to go to the next slide. All right. So we know we have a couple of new faces and we've got some familiar faces that have been joining us for the past couple of cohort meetings, including our in-person meeting. But just a reminder, and for new folks, that this project, this Maryland-based cohort, is part of a larger U.S. Department of Energy funded project called Designing and Implementing Building Performance Standards in Small, Rural, and Justice 40 Communities. Clearly Energy is the prime on this project, working alongside the team in Maryland and our friends at NEEP and some other stakeholders across the country. So in addition to Maryland, there are cohorts that are taking place in West Virginia, California, et cetera. So we're really happy to have you. If you have not participated previously, or again, as a refresher, we've done topics such as Benchmarking 101. We did a benchmarking deep dive. We had our friends from the Department of Energy come and join us to talk about audit template and different DOE tools and resources. And we've also done a bit of the regulation overview, which is what we're going to be doing more of a deeper dive on today. Next slide. So today's agenda, first we're going to introduce Lacey, who is going to talk a little bit more about some upcoming resources through MEA's Building Decarbonization Grant Program. We'll go through the 2025 BEPS updates and resources. We're going to introduce you to the BEPS portal. We'll do a demo of the portal and how you can find your UBID, how to connect with Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We'll have times for some Q&A and then a reminder on future meeting topics as well as the Google Classroom. So before we begin, we'd also like for folks, we want to make sure that we keep this interactive. So if you could, in the chat, please put your name, your jurisdiction, and what you're hoping to learn today, or potentially any questions that you might have for the team. And we will be, making sure that we get to Q&A and time for questions, because that's really important for us, is to help give you the resources you need, but then also to answer your questions. So feel free to put your name, your jurisdiction, and what you're hoping to get out of today's webinar. Next slide, please. All right, I'm now going to pass it over to Lacey, who is going to introduce herself. She's a new member to the team, and she's going to talk about some resources that she has. So Lacey, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lacey Allor, and I'm a program manager here at the Maryland Energy Administration. I oversee 2 grants that can help support building efficiency and electrification. So the first one is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, or EECBG, and that one's a federal grant that can directly funds the top 10 cities and counties to create and develop clean energy projects. But in addition to these top 10 cities and counties, the state of Maryland also received direct funding that we would like to disperse to municipalities that are not in that top 10 category. And we would like our funding to contribute just to planning for electrification. So this can include creating an energy efficiency plan, a decarbonization plan, or expanding/revising an existing plan. I will say the state of Maryland has not yet launched our EECBG program, but it is coming very soon, so stay tuned. And there's also a working group for this one where you can collaborate with all kinds of stakeholders on these projects. And the deadline to apply for this working group is January 28th, which is 1 week from today. And then the second grant is the Maryland Smart Energy Communities Program, which we also call MSEC. And that one funds the capital projects themselves. So the first one was planning, and this one's for the actual projects. This is an amazing opportunity for local governments to meet BEPS standards, as we fund all kinds of efficiency projects, from like LED retrofits to heat pumps to window glazing and so many types of efficiency projects. And if you would like more information, I will send links to each of these programs in the chat. And if you have any questions, I'll also provide an email. And I can do my best to answer questions in this meeting, but it is best that you email us, because I've been working on these programs for only about a month now, and I can give much better answers over email, but I'm happy to be here. So thank you all for having me.
刷，他现在
All right,
刚通过
thank
的
you.
那
Oh,
个
looks like I think if folks could mute themselves, a little bit of background noise. Thank you, Lacey, so much. And she will put that information in the chat. We'll also make sure to send that around to folks afterwards. Thank you to those of you that have chatted in now about what you're interested in learning more about, which includes, Lacey, good for you, grant opportunities, which a lot of folks are interested in. And now I'm going to pass it over to Sam. If you want to go to the next slide. There you go. So Sam, there's a lot of folks, a lot of chatter in the box. People want to know more about the regulations and how to
All
comply.
right.
So good timing.
Perfect timing. Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Can you hear me and see me okay? Yeah, all right.
Sound great.
Thanks. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Furio. I'm the outreach coordinator for the building decarbonization team at the Maryland Department of the Environment. The building decarbonization team is working on implementing the Building Energy Performance Standards, or BEPS. Thanks for joining today. I think this is one of our most well-attended cohort sessions. If you have any questions, as was said, please submit them in the chat feature. But glad you all are here, and we've got some exciting new updates on BEPS in 2025.
The thing is, I mean, the bottom line is,
And just a
the
reminder
BARF
to
program
ensure
never
your
changes,
mics are muted.
but, average Joe Schmo.
I muted some
So
people.
thank you. So before diving in too deep, the department has some great overview information on BEPS available on the BEPS website, which you can get to via the QR code on the left side of the screen right now. And if you're looking to subscribe to any BEPS emailing lists, you can get to our new sign up platform via the QR code on the right side of the screen. Now, if you've been used to signing up for our email lists and informational sessions in 2024, we kind of changed our platform for the new year. New year, new us. And so your signups will have transferred over to the new platform, but there might be some new integration. So it might be worth checking out the new email list platform when you have a chance. So if you need a BEPS overview, BEPS YouTube playlist, you can get to that resource through the BEPS website. That's a great resource if maybe this is your first time hearing about BEPS and you want to learn more. We do a lot of deep dives on the YouTube playlist. And as always, if you have questions after reading those resources, you can reach our team, which is fully here today, and I'm excited to be presenting with them. But you can reach our team via the BEPS email at the bottom of the screen, beps.mde@maryland.gov. So with that, I think we can go on to the next slide. And actually, before we dive in too deep, I just wanted to introduce the other members of the building decarbonization team who are going to have a role in today's presentation. We're all going to be delivering information to you all together. So we have Dr. Zach Brazola, section head of the building decarbonization team. Zach, if you just want to wave, say hi. And we also have—
Hi, everyone.
There he is. And we also have Chris Menser, who's going to be walking us through a live demo a little later. He's the building decarbonization specialist. He's
Good morning,
here.
everyone.
There he is. All right, we're all with you today. So they'll take over a little later. So it's been a little while since we've had a cohort session, but we hope you all had a nice holiday and New Year. And since this is the first presentation of the new year, we wanted to provide you with an update on Maryland's BEPS program. So first and foremost, building energy performance standards are now in effect for the state of Maryland. So the regulation is final, and it was finalized on December 23rd, 2024. So in an effort to assist building owners with their transition to the new BEPS requirement, The department intends to treat all initial benchmarking reports submitted by September 1st, 2025 as timely. And we feel this additional time will help give building owners the time they need to meet the 2025 reporting requirements. Additionally, the BEPS portal version 1.0 is live on the BEPS website today. In this portal, you can find a whole bunch of resources being your unique building identifiers for covered buildings, the list of covered buildings, and also it'll allow you to access exemption forms and submit for the buildings that those forms are applicable for. So that portal is live today, and we're going to be diving into that a little later. Zach will walk you through that. Finally, we're also releasing the finalized benchmarking guide, which we released in draft form through a lot of our working group sessions in 2024, and solicited feedback for, and we've incorporated and listened to that feedback and finalized this benchmarking guide that we'll also be releasing today. So I think with that, we can go to the next slide. So this benchmarking guide, which was released this month, can be found on the BEPS website. Everything we're going to walk you through today in this demo can be found in this guide. And so there are plenty of entry points into benchmarking. Looking through this guide, watching previous recordings on that YouTube channel I mentioned, reading through high-level overviews on the BEPS website, and also looking through Portfolio Manager, frequently asked questions, and resources. So for example, in this guide, you're going to find the foundation for understanding how to benchmark in Portfolio Manager for compliance with Maryland's BEPS. It's going to walk you through account setup, property creation, and meter data entry. It's going to outline exclusions from energy data calculations in Energy Star Portfolio Manager and provide instructions for handling these cases. And I'm going to walk you through some of those cases more on the next slide. But before we get there, it'll also address flexibility given to Maryland building owners under BEPS, which is the campus compliance pathway, and also explain how to benchmark properties that receive thermal energy from district energy systems. So we can just go on to the next slide, please. And so I mentioned these energy exclusions. So you can find guidance on these types of energy exclusions in the benchmarking guide. And this is energy use associated with food service facilities, electric vehicle charging, heating outdoor pools, parking lots, combustion equipment if it's required by state or federal law, and other portfolio manager exclusions listed in the regulations technical memorandum 24-01, which is on the BEPS website. And I think we can go to the next slide. So before I hand it over to Zach, I'm just going to do an overview of the BEPS process. What's the portal at a high 10,000 square foot view, and how does it relate to Portfolio Manager? So there are two main different tools that MDE and building owners will use in this process. You can think of the portal like your hardware store, the place where you get the tools you need to get the work done. And Portfolio Manager is where you actually get the project done. It's the project site. The benchmarking guide and the BEPS website work together to make up the blueprint that show you how to get the work done. And next slide, please. And then on this screen, more into this process, on the top of the chart, you'll see an orange circle for the BEPS portal. You can use the portal to find your unique building identifier or your UBID. You can look at the updated covered buildings list, and you can submit those exemption requests, which we'll get into a little bit later. And you'll also see a flow chart of building benchmarking reporting process. Notice building owners and MDE in green circles. Starting from the left, building owners will set up an account on Portfolio Manager, add properties, enter utility data, and verify the data. Moving right, the first major step in reporting this data to MDE is connecting with MDE like a friend request. All the way on the right side, notice that MDE will accept this request to connect, and building owners receive a notification once that happens. And then step 3, center bottom, building owners will go back into Portfolio Manager and share the data, and you only share data for buildings, for those covered buildings, even if you're benchmarking smaller buildings. So with that, how do you get to the BEPS portal? What can you find in there? And with that, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Zach Brazola to walk you through BEPS portal 1.0. Take it away, Zach, when you're ready.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks everyone for coming today. Let's go to the next slide. So to actually get to the portal, you go to the same BEPS website we've had for a while. We'll drop the link in the chat, but it's also mde.maryland.gov/BEPS BEPS. And right at the top, you'll see a new kind of 3 different banners. We have the YouTube playlist, we have the working group sign up and kind of email list sign up. And then the main one is this big yellow one, which says BEPS portal and next steps. Click here. And if you click on that, you'll go to the next page, and we can go to the next slide to do so. And this is going to take you to our overview of the regulations requirements, exemption eligibility, and the first steps needed to kind of be in compliance with the regulation. I call this the quick start guide. It's a quick page to get you centered on what do you have to do. And when you've read through all of that, you can actually get to the portal there. There's a big green button. You can also, if you're coming in future times, benchmark the portal link directly, or there's a navigation right at the top of the page that just lets you scroll right to this spot in it. And so it's going to list things like regulation resources, portfolio manager resources, information about the Clean Buildings Hubs also on there. So we really encourage everyone to read through that page and refer back to it as necessary, because it's a great spot to kind of get a lot of the background and information you need. And then when you go to the portal page itself, it's really operational. So if we click here and enter the portal, if we go to the next slide, you'll see this is what the portal looks like when you first enter. We have a little bit of a description at the top. Again, some quick information to help you navigate through this specific page. But at the end of the day, what you're here for is to find your building on the covered buildings list, or add it if it's not on the list, or apply for exemption if you're requesting exemption. There's also a handful of other things like district energy or campus compliance that you would apply for through the portal. So if we go to the next slide, to find your UBID and look for your building, you're going to enter your address. And so you type it in the street address and click enter. And you can also filter by city, by county, by zip code. We don't have anything in building name yet. That's all going to come as you submit your reports. And then the primary use type and square footage that we have, and you can't see it, but there is a square footage. You just have to scroll over a little bit. That is coming from the best available data we have from SDAT right now. But it's not always accurate, and that will get updated as you submit your portfolio manager reports or an exemption form. So here you search. If we go to the next slide, once you enter the address, you have to click enter. I know that's always a little bit challenging for folks sometimes, because you expect it to live filter, and it will live filter, but there's a lot of buildings, so it takes a long time. If you click enter, it goes faster. You find your building. Here we put in at 80 Calvert Street in Annapolis as a state building. And you'll see on the left your UBID. It's this long alphanumeric thing. You're like, what the heck is this silly thing? Why are we using it? Well, we're using this because it is unique to your building, and it's based on the geometry of your building and where it is in the world. So there is you can create a UBID for any building in the world, and that UBID is going to be the same whether you look it up or somebody else looks it up. And so this, in the long run, really helps us both here and externally reference back to your building. And if you want to confirm that that is your building, you can click on the UBID itself. And if we go to the next slide, you'll actually see it pops up on a map, and we're kind of drawing a box around your building. And as long as that box and the dot are on your building, or right there, not referencing some other building, that will that's your building and you're good. You can go back and copy that UBID. You can also, from the same page, look up another UBID if you wanted to. So, this is, again, if something's wrong here, you can reach out to us and request a new UBID. But you can also, if there's something funky, you can also just directly email us. With that, if we go to the next slide. So what happens if your building is not listed? Well, if your building's not listed, I think I just saw this come through in the chat, you're going to request a UBID. And so the way you do this is that you're going to fill out a form. So you go back on the main page, there's this, click here to request to add your building to the coverage buildings list, and we'll generate a UBID. So you click on that, and it's going to require you to register. And if we go to the next page, next slide, you're going to have to register for an account, and you register as a new user. And there's a key thing here. When you register, you have to confirm your email. So you register, it's going to send you an email. You have to confirm before you log in again. Otherwise, if you try to log in, it's going to tell you your password's wrong. We've got to update the little warning there that's coming. But for now, just remember, you have to confirm your email before you can proceed. And you only have to register for an account if you're submitting an exemption form, a request for UBID form, or one of these other forms down the road. If you're just if your building's listed, you've got a UBID, everything's good, you're just going to take that UBID and copy it over, which Chris will show in a minute. But this is kind of that you need to request something, you're going to ask for actions. We want you to register for an account so we can confirm your email and make sure we're corresponding with somebody and have accountability for all the forms submitted. So if we go to the next slide, this is what the request for UBID form kind of starts to look like. It's a web form. You basically have to fill out some key information about the building itself, things like the square footage, the primary use type, and things. We also asked for the latitude and longitude for the building, and you can get that. We put the directions in the form directly from Google Maps. It's pretty straightforward. It's a 2-click kind of thing, 2 or 3 clicks, but that lets us make sure that we're actually getting that proper building when we generate a UBID. And we will do the UBID generation and populate it on the list. And it will take a little bit of time. We're going to do it in batches, but we will then go and create a UBID for your building, and it'll show up on the list in time. And so with that, brief showcase of our portal and UBIDs, I'm going to pass it to Chris Menser to now actually show us how you take that UBID and go enter it in Portfolio Manager. So if we go to the next slide, that should be, yeah, we're going to do a demo. And Chris, you want to come on and take it away?
Yes, thanks, Zach. All right, before getting started, if this is your first benchmarking, with Portfolio Manager, I really recommend you go back and watch previously recorded benchmarking working group where we walk through Portfolio Manager, and Charlotte from the Energy Star team does a greater in-depth demo of setting up your property. So this is just strictly, this demo today is just going to be putting your UBID into Portfolio Manager. So let me share my screen. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the login screen for the Portfolio Manager website. Sorry. All right, so if you don't already have an account, you'll click Create New Account, but since I have a test account, I'll just log in. And are you seeing my screen?
Yep, Chris, everything looks good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Now when you log in, you'll see a list of buildings. If you don't already have a building, you're going to click on Add New Property. Sorry about this. I'm having some technical difficulties. Accessing my mouse. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm going to share a different screen. Okay. So when I log in, I'm going to see my properties. If I don't have one, I'm going to be creating a new property today just for test purposes and for demonstration. I'm going to be entering some basic property information. And I'm going to be doing a office building here. So I'll select office. And then you select the number of properties, which is 1. And then you select your building construction status. Since this is a test property, I'm going to select test property. And if you're benchmarking your building, you'll click existing. Then you click get started. You enter some basic property information, name, which I'll just do Maryland Building Office. And then you enter your address for your building, which is the same address Zach showed us earlier in the portal. Year built and gross floor area. Then you select the occupancy. It's 100. And this next section is where you'll be entering your UBID under standard IDs. So you copy your UBID from the portal, and then under standard ID other, you select your unique building identifier UBID, and then just copy and paste it in here. And if any of these apply to your building, otherwise hit continue. And you've successfully entered your UBID. So that's how you enter your UBID into Portfolio Manager. The next step is to really add the rest of the details about your property and request a utility data, the utility data from your provider. And I'll hand it to Sam to talk through more about this.
All right, thank you, Chris. I think we can wait to get the other slides back up. We'll move on past the demo slide. Thank you, Claire, appreciate it. All right, so with those demos of the portal and getting your UBID, getting it into Portfolio Manager, you know where it needs to go. Now, like Chris said, get some accurate property characteristics, fill it in into your Portfolio Manager profile, and then you're going to need to get your utility data and load it into your profile for Portfolio Manager. so that you can hit the reporting deadline. So how do you do this? Well, this month we've also released, alongside the benchmarking guidance, a document called Connecting with Your Energy Data Provider, which I'm going to drop in the chat right now. So this document details the process for utilities in the state of Maryland, the data request process for utilities in the state of Maryland, as well as available resources to assist in the data request process, and also contact information for those utilities should you run into any difficulties or have any questions. So in this document, you're going to find a list of utility providers, and each provider has its own unique process for supplying you with your data. So you're going to find the provider or providers that apply to you and follow the steps for their process. The information on this document was provided to MDE by Maryland's electric and gas companies. So you can find that link in the chat now. And so, for example, on the screen, we have a screenshot of Baltimore Gas and Electric's data request process, as well as their contact information and some additional resources, step-by-step guides, and login links. So if you're supplied by a large utility provider like BG&E, they will automatically populate your data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager upon request. If you have a smaller scale provider, they may provide you with a spreadsheet, and then you can upload that spreadsheet into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. When you're making your utility data requests, we'd recommend just knowing the amount of meters on site at your building, so that when the utility provides you with the data, you can QC the amount of data or meters that were included in the aggregate data amount. So for example, if you have maybe 100-unit building with 2 meters per unit, you can dummy check that to you should be receiving data for 200 meters. So additionally, when requesting usage from your service provider, it's worth knowing the service addresses for your meters. Service addresses can change for meters within the same building. For example, a meter listed at 123 Main Street could be, the service address could be spelled street, S-T-R-E-E-T, and then another meter could have a service address 123 Main Street, and the street is ST period, so, or abbreviated as ST period. So it's worth digging into the service addresses for your meter so you can have better luck at locating them. So with that, I'd encourage you to dive into that document when you're able to and see what the request process is for your providers. And just note that in 2025, utility providers have 90 days to supply you with your energy data upon request. And then after 2025, they have 30 days to supply you with that data. And if you have any questions about this process or run into any issues in getting your aggregate data, you can email our team at beps.mde@maryland.gov. And so I think we can go on the next slide. So we ran through the portal, and that's going to be your go-to for the covered buildings list, your UBIDs, and also exemption forms, as Zach was talking about. And so we just wanted to reiterate what exemptions were available within BEPS. And so on the screen, you can see kind of a one-stop shop for all available exemptions. And so I'll just walk you through piece by piece. On the left, you have property types that are available for a total exemption. So they're going to apply once, and they're exempt from all requirements for building energy performance standards. So those are buildings designated as historic by local, state, or federal law, individually or separate from its inclusion in a historic district. You have public and non-public elementary and secondary schools, manufacturing buildings, agricultural buildings, demolished buildings, and buildings owned by the federal government. So all these property types are eligible to apply for an exemption, and if granted by MDE's compliance program, they'll be totally exempt from all BEPS requirements. So we'll get into what that might look like more form-wise on the next screen, but just before we move over, there's also some forms for if you're a provider of affordable housing, and this also extends not just to affordable housing providers, but also providers of naturally occurring affordable housing. There's an application for reduced alternative compliance payments, and that's the alternative compliance payment that's available for the emissions standard. So you can read more about that. We have a whole affordable housing working group where we really dived into this process. So you can learn more about that exemption in depth there, and those recordings on the YouTube playlist. For buildings that are experiencing financial distress and also buildings that are not occupied, there's a total exemption from the requirements, benchmarking, and performance standards. But for that, you have to apply annually. And also there's, for buildings with low occupancy, you can apply to delay the establishment of your baseline performance. And you can delay that performance up to 3 times, or establishment of the baseline up to 3 times. So that's kind of one-stop shop for a bunch of different exemptions in BEPS. And with that, we can go to the next screen. So how do you apply for these exemptions? There's the portal is going to be your place to go for that. You're going to submit these exemption requests or these forms through the portal for the building that you believe the exemption is applicable for. So on the screen, you'll see a screenshot of what this would look like in the portal. So your building, you'll click on that form action button on the left-hand side of the screen. And if you believe it's a school or a manufacturing building that is eligible for the exemption that's available for those buildings, you can submit the form with supporting documentation, and our compliance program will evaluate and determine if it's exempt. And so the total property type exemptions are on there. There's also an exemption form for, hey, my building's on the covered buildings list, but it's not actually larger than 35,000 square feet. There's a form there that you can submit as well, showing the accurate square footage for the building. Hey, it doesn't need to comply with BEPS, and it'll be removed from that covered buildings list. And vice versa. Hey, my building isn't on the covered buildings list, but it needs to comply. It meets the size requirements. It's not exempt. It needs to be added to the list, and then you can submit that request for a UBID form to have a UBID added for that building. So with that, that's those exemptions and relevant forms. And I think we can go on to the next slide. FAQ. So we've got Dr. Decarb here today, and I think we should take full advantage of him being here and get some FAQs from Dr. Decarb. There's a couple topics that I think would be beneficial for everyone to hear. So with that, I will pass it back to Zach to walk us through a couple BEPS frequently asked questions. Zach, when you're ready, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And I saw a lot of good questions in the chat as well, so we'll try to get to those here shortly. Let's go to the next slide. So something we get asked about a lot is garden style apartments. I know that may be a little bit different for most of the folks on here. It may not matter, but it's just a good kind of understanding of what is a covered building. And so I'm going to walk through this pretty quickly. If you've got more questions, we can come back to it. Hey, just to remind everybody, if you could go on mute if you're, so that'd be great. So garden style apartments. If you have separate garden style apartment buildings that aren't connected via their envelope, shared systems, and/or energy meters, they're separate buildings. If they're over 35,000 square feet and over, then you're going to need to report them. If they're under 35,000 square feet, then they do not need to comply. If you have separate garden style apartment buildings that are connected via the envelope, shared systems, and or energy meters, then they're connected buildings. And so if their combined gross floor area of those connected buildings is over 35,000 square feet, you need to report them. And if it's under 35,000 square feet, they don't need to comply. And this happens a lot as well. People think about strip malls as another good example. That is one building because those are all under one shared envelope of the total building is another good example. And I just want to give some illustrations. If we go to the next slide of what this looks like. So here is an example I took of some buildings. Each address is a separate building, and the address here that I put in is just these blue numbers. Each one has its own it has its own gas service and its own electric service. So, you know, each of those buildings, even if the units within it are not sub-metered, then the property isn't subject to Maryland BEPS. If it's listed on the, and the whole thing is under 35,000 square feet, then it's, each of those separate buildings is under 35,000 square feet, excuse me. Then it's, if it's been listed, then you can apply for exemption. And if it's not listed, then there's nothing to do. You're fine. But here we can take something, a similar configuration. If we go to the next slide, here, this is, you know, each address still contains, each one of these is a separate building under 35,000 square feet. But if any one of the, but if all of these buildings share a gas meter, electric meter, hot water system, an HVAC system, and the total, you know, buildings 1 through 7 all add up to over 35,000 square feet and over, then that's going to be a covered building. And it only takes one of those cases to put it into that box of coverage. It could be all, they could all be on both shared electric and gas meter. But oftentimes we see, you know, a hot water system shared between all the buildings. And so functionally, from a benchmarking standpoint, this is one building because you can't tear apart that energy use and things like that. And so this would be covered. And if it's not listed, you need to apply, get a UBID, and start reporting. And similarly, sometimes you get cases where maybe we've listed like 3 of these buildings, but you're going to report them all as one. You can actually, when we get to campus compliance, we'll just call that, for simplicity's sake, submit a campus compliance application saying you're reporting all these together because they're all in a shared system. And then you list the 2 other buildings and we will kind of bunch them all up into one reporting thing. So there's kind of some of this shakeout of the covered buildings list that we're going to do over the next, almost 8 months to kind of get all these pieces aligned. Mm-hmm. And so if we go to the next slide, here's yet another example of what this could look like. Buildings 2, 3, and 4 are one physical building because of a shared envelope. And again, we don't actually, at MDE, we don't necessarily know this from the data we have, but you're on the ground, you're like, these are all one building. And if that total square footage is 35,000 square feet or more, it doesn't matter about the gas or the electric or shared HVAC, whatever, but that one blob is all one physical building. You can't take out the building in the middle without the other 2 falling down, things like that, or, you know, without the weather getting into one of those, you know, to building 2 or 4, then that is a single covered building per the definition in the regulation of a building, which refers to the International Building Code ultimately. And so that orange group is going to be the building that reports under BEPS. So that's a kind of quick overview of what is a covered building. And if we go to the next slide, I think we're moving into discussion. Quick, one other question. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I want to hit it home. You don't need to register on the BEPS portal to submit your benchmarking report to the department. This is kind of key. You can do everything through Portfolio Manager. You just need to go onto the portal to grab your UBID, unless you need to apply for exemption or you're not listed or doing campus compliance. Those kind of more unique situations, the portals where you register and you kind of go through a process. So with that, I'm going to take some questions, I think.
All right. Thanks for that, Zach. And Claire, if we could just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we're hopefully going to have some time for open discussion, and we sent some of these questions out to everyone in advance, and we're curious to hear your thoughts and or any thoughts on the content we've talked about today. But before we get into those, we saw some questions in the chat, and so we're going to try to address those questions, and then we'll get into open discussion. So just bear with us a few more minutes. And so, yeah, Zach, I'm wondering if you could help out with some of these questions. First one being, who will be responsible for determining if a building is required to submit via BEPS? There was a draft list prepared by the state pulling data from SSTAT, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Will that be updated or will it be self-determined?
Yeah, this is a great question. And the answer is it's a little bit collaborative here. So at the end of the day, the regulation says that any building in the state that meets the definition of a covered building is required to report as part of BEPS and comply with BEPS unless otherwise exempted, regardless of the department's notification of that building. And so what that means is if you're a 40,000 square foot building and you're not on that list, you are obligated by the regulation to come into compliance. And so what that looks like is submitting that request for UBID form to us, and then we'll add you to the list. So ultimately, the list will improve, adding buildings that we've missed because the data wasn't there, or it's a new construction or things like that. And so ultimately, everybody will be listed because you need that UBID to submit. But getting on that list is the building owner's responsibility if you're not already there. And we've done our best to put as many as we could on there. But we know there's some holes and buildings on there that are exempt and or are under 35,000 square feet because the data is wrong. So this is kind of an ongoing process to sort that list out.
Great, thank you, Zach. Next question in the chat, Zach, if you could take this one, is there a shapefile attribute or attribute table or other downloadable version of the covered buildings list to help local governments contact affected building owners?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are not making that list kind of in a downloadable version right now because it's constantly changing, right? We launched a program last week. We've already gotten a whole bunch of new requests to be added. We've got some exemptions. So that list will change, probably this week. We'll put some new folks on there. And so it's a little bit of a constantly evolving list, but we're going to talk internally a little bit. I think this is a great question. If you're really interested in using this list to do some outreach, reach out to Sam. And maybe we can continue this conversation through the cohort about how to do this outreach, because we want to support that absolutely. And so we can come up with a good solution there to make that workable. And that's something we want to do. And I put this in the chat, but on this topic, the easiest way to see buildings in your county or your city is you can put in the filter for that county or city, and then you can search by address or anything else. So it's a pretty straightforward way to right now, at least on the portal, view the list and kind of filter down. You can apply multiple filters at one time. So it's meant to be pretty user-friendly in terms of how you kind of filter and find things, right? If you want to just look up multifamily housing in your jurisdiction, you could do that, for example, or offices.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks for that question. Two more from the chat. We just want to get to real quick. If we have a building that would be exempt and it's not listed in the covered building list, do we need to add it first, then request exemption? Do you help with that one, Zach?
Yeah, that's a good one. So you do have to add it first, and ultimately it's a record keeping for us, because we want to make sure that we have your listed, that you've applied for exemption, and we have all that information. And so, first you would submit a request for a UBID to be added because you're over 35,000 square feet. And then you would submit once we put you up, again, we're trying to turn those around pretty quickly, then you'd apply for exemption and go from there. And so it is a two-step process, but that just helps ensure that, one, we know there's no surprises. It's like, yes, you are a 35,000 square foot building. You're in our kind of inventory of all the buildings in the state, but then you're exempt. I also just want to caveat, especially for this group, we got from the Department of Education a list of all the primary and secondary schools in the state that they know of, like the school buildings. And so we pulled those out of the list. So if you're thinking about a school building, you can ignore those for now. We're going to, I think based on some feedback already, we're going to put that list up there and just note that they're exempt, so that it's even clearer. But if you're thinking about your school buildings, don't worry about it.
Thank you for that. And let's see, one more quick one for you, Zach. So if you're adding a building, do we create the UBID or does MDE?
Yeah, so we at MDE are going to create the UBIDs. And so we basically just take that information you provided and run it through a little thing on our end to generate the UBID, and then it will be listed on the portal. And that ensures that UBID, which is going to kind of forever be the same, will be agreed for all of us.
Great, thank you. Okay. I just saw, Jason, you popped a question in the chat about our building owners being notified that they are on the list. And so the department will be endeavoring to notify building owners via mail later this year. Per the requirements of the regulation, however, all buildings in the state meeting that definition of a covered building must report data to the department and participate in BEPS, regardless of the department's identification of them. So all building owners that have those buildings that are over 35,000 square feet should go to the BEPS portal to learn more and find their UBID, request their UBID if not listed, or apply for one of those eligible exemptions. So thanks for that question. Thanks for being here. I think with that, I want to grant some time here at the end just for open discussion. We've got some questions up on the screen that we sent out just to kind of get some brainstorm in advance of the call. But just wanted to open up for anyone in case they had thoughts or anything about the content we talked about today, or about the questions on the screen. So I know we've got about 5 minutes left, but just wanted to see what other people are thinking out there.
Sam, I'll
I
jump
added
in.
a question in the chat about airport hangars and classifications because they're under a land lease arrangement. So who is ultimately responsible for submitting that data?
Yeah,
Got
Andrew,
you.
I was just starting to type up a response in the chat for you. But I'll be honest here, these different arrangements that often becomes a legal question of who ultimately is the owner of the building. But in BEPS, where the owner is defined as who owns the building, not necessarily the land under it. So as long as the lawyers agree that the building owner is whoever it is, that's the person responsible for doing it, for reporting. If they want to apply for exemption as manufacturing and they've got, justification that they meet the definition of manufacturing, which we've put in to the exemption forms, then they can do that and the department will review it. And that really, I think there is definitely some variance there as what meets manufacturing, and the whole reason for the exemption process is to answer some of those questions, right? If they think they meet it, we can review all the documentation and say, yes, they do, or no, that's really just storage rather than manufacturing of something. Andrew, I know that's not like the full answer, but does that help?
Yes, I think it's something that we have to work out with the tenants because some of these have prescribed lease lengths. And so when the lease ends, the building and the assets become the property of the underlying landowner. So there's kind of a process here with you passing the baton that is going to get difficult when we talk about, you know, fees being assessed in the future. So we may end up with, you know, non-compliant buildings.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a unique one where the landowner, the building owner will eventually become the owner, but isn't really right now, it sounds like.
Correct.
Good one.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, we're looking to do an external consultant. I know BG&E has some programs that they can, you can reach out to their consultants and they'll help assist building owners with that. So I'd probably recommend maybe MDD reaching out to them to get some of that information and disseminate it through this process. I think that'd be helpful. As far as question number 4, what's weighing on my mind is just how this is going to impact our operations. We do a lot of energy upgrades now with LED lighting, HVAC projects, envelopes and windows and things like that. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that we're going to be in compliance with the energy usage, but I have some concerns with what cost we're going to have to bear in order to gain further compliance. I have concerns with the non-use of natural gas or those type things with regards to comfort for people in the buildings. Heat pumps and things like that don't work as well in cold temperatures. So I just have some concerns with that. When we're dealing with these large buildings, we need to have some large heat loads that we're going to be combating. So I'm just kind of concerned with how this is all going to impact that.
Thanks for that, Jason. Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that cost is definitely a concern for folks, and you know, we're you know, Becky Price, I think if she's still on the call, who's been, you know, very active in this cohort, you know, is managing the Clean Buildings Hub, and working to develop that. And you know, I think that's going to be a great resource for folks going forward, and finding resources that are relevant to you and being that first mile of technical assistance. And yeah, so I think, you know, staying apprised of that development, you know, as you go through, you know, these first years of BEPS compliance will be really important. But Zach, I saw you come off mute if you want to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in that we are almost at time, and we have two other slides that will be helpful resources for folks and some questions for folks as well. So I don't want to. I know we're losing a few folks right now.
Well, all right. I was just going to say, Jason, on the hub, we're putting some really good resources on, you know, decarbonizing large buildings, and there are a lot of net zero solutions to doing that. So there's a lot of people thinking about it, and a lot of great studies showing that it can be done, and it can be done cost effectively, and more resources to come.
Yeah.
Over to you, Carolyn.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to flip it over. Claire, if you want to move to the next slide. Thanks for hanging in with us. You know, continue to put things in the chat. Claire, do you want to go over the next 2 topics for our meetings?
Yeah, sounds great. So we have some upcoming cohort meetings. The first is a Frederick County Showcase cohort meeting, coming up in February here. And so that'll just go over the case study of Frederick, who has already reported, and also a Maryland Clean Energy Center financing and technical assistance offerings meeting, which is upcoming in March. So more information will be coming out about that and will be emailed to you and also posted in the classroom. And on the topic of the classroom as well, we do have a Maryland Building Energy Performance Standards cohort Google Classroom. So I know a few folks here are new today. So if you're not already aware, or if you are and you haven't joined yet, we do have a Google Classroom where you can receive any cohort related updates and communicate with any other jurisdictions as well. You can share resources, events, and just the class access code as well is listed there. And just as a flagged item, the compliance checklist for reporting is in the process of being developed and will be shared both through the classroom, and we'll send that to your emails as well. And also please feel free to reach out and let us know any other resources that you need, and we'll be happy to add those.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here as well. And thank you for your questions, for such great discussion. This meeting has been recorded, so we'll send out the recording to you and the slides as well, and we'll also include those in the classroom. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Sam and Zach.
Yes, thank you.
And Chris and Lacey and Becky for her moral support, and Veronique as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.